Hello and welcome to this edition of the Mintec Video Insight Update. I'm Marcel Goldenberg, Head of Proprietary Pricing here at Mintec, and it's time for the survey results again. I'm very pleased to bring them to you. It's very good to see again that so many of you are participating. We've seen numbers increase to the June survey that we did, so that is very good to see indeed. I'm going to take you through, I think it was about 7 questions that we had. I'm going to take you through them all, but as we answer them and look through what you guys have really answered, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on what I'm hearing in the market as well. So I think the first question really was about where do you currently see the price for vanilla in Madagascar? Not surprisingly, looking at the median of answers, so the most of our answers we've received, it was at $2.50. We've seen that decrease in the minimum government price drop by $100 per kilogram about 2 weeks ago towards the end of July. This was quite interesting really, because I think there was this debate going on between the government, between exporters and between some of the buyers. And typically what happens in Madagascar really is that you can see a divergence towards the middle. There's a lot of negotiation going on. We've discussed in a previous video already that the 150 mark is even a level that some of the exporters find quite favourable, because it's where you can see sustainability, where you can still make some profit, but also you can support that living income and make sure that the industry is really supported there. Now that's what some of the local people in Madagascar were going into with this for, and the government started off at being at this 250 mark, and almost an arbitrary $100 below where it was before, the 350 mark. So I think there was a large expectation in the market for this minimum price to come in at 200 in the middle of the two, to meet in the middle. It came in at 250, and that was a little bit of a surprise, and I think we've seen that going forward, that demand really hasn't picked up as much as some people were really expecting here. It's still relatively sluggish here, and I mean, as we go through into the next question, really looking at what do you expect the price to be 3 months from today. Unsurprisingly, 0 people have actually answered that prices are likely to go up, and 60% of people answering here have said prices are likely to go down. That leaves 40%, and they think price will remain unchanged the next 3 months. So you can see the market is expecting prices to drop, and that's what I was alluding to previously when it comes to that demand in the market. People, it's really a hand-to-mouth industry. Buyers are not going out there and putting large orders in. What they're doing is they're buying what they need to really buy right now, anticipating next time they need to replenish their stocks. Prices are likely going to be lower, so they would purchase more than. So that's not the kickstart the industry need, right? We've got a very big crop, and we can get to that question in a second, but we've got a big crop, and we need demand to really come in and take some of that demand, that stock out of Madagascar and globally really. And with pegging the price at 250, it just means people are waiting for price to drop further. So that's a little bit of, I think it's been a hindrance recently over the last couple of weeks. So we then looked, obviously switching towards Indonesia. Obviously Indonesia's typically coming in a little bit below price in Madagascar. What have we been seeing here for prices? And it's quite clear that it is below where obviously Madagascar is, and I think the average we're hearing here and the median are quite close together. It's in that $230, $240 range. So I think I've been hearing a fair amount of people also coming in at that below 200 mark in Indonesia. You get that 170, 180. So certainly you're $30 to $70 depending on I think what quality you're buying, below Madagascan quality. Now let's move on to some of the other questions that I think are quite important, and for you quite clearly, you really want to know more about this as well. How large do people anticipate the crop to be in 2020, so the crop that's currently coming out? We've seen, obviously, we've had some harvesting on green beans in the Mbanja, and obviously we're slowly moving closer and closer to that date for the Sava region. Now, I think most people answering this have said it's going to be 2,000, that's going to be the crop for this year. However, we've had a couple of people actually going up as high as 3,000. We saw a similar trend last year, didn't we? But really, the initial expectations were the crop would be 1,250 metric tons, and then actually, if we look back today, it came in at 1,450, 1,500 tons number. So you could really see, global production figures creeping up. Then I think that's what some people are expecting to happen here as well, right? Though doubtful it'll increase by 50%. I think on our Mintec view and from what we're hearing in the market, that 2,000 metric ton figure is quite in line with what we were expecting as well. The lowest we heard here was 1,800 actually, just on the back of the survey. So again, you know, I think it is in that 2,000 metric ton bracket. The other question I think we had on the survey was about how much crop do you anticipate to be left over at the end of the 2020 crop? So basically moving into like, you know, March, April of next year, what will be left over? I think in the last survey we heard that there's currently between 200 to 400 metric tons left in the market. What will be left of the current crop? And this is where it's quite interesting, right? The average really comes in here at 650 metric tons left over. So that'll be an increase from where we are now. And I mean, I think that even the lowest one I heard was at the 100 metric ton mark. So again, nobody that's participated in the survey, nobody I've been speaking to outside of the survey on my daily calls is anticipating, you know, actually supply to be below demand. So keep that in mind, and that kind of, it goes back to that point that we discussed initially on this video, where, you know, why are people not buying? Well, if there's meant to be leftover stock at the end of the year, clearly prices are anticipated to come down further. Now, then I think one of the question was, did you think that the reduction to $250 per kilogram was correct by the government? And unsurprisingly, I think through the thread of this video we've been seeing, the overwhelming majority here were saying no, it was the wrong answer. In fact, it was 75% that said it was the wrong call to make. So only a quarter really said it was the right call, and 250 was in line with what they were expecting. Now, the last question I think was quite interesting, so I'm just going to read it back to you. Last question was, please enter 3 keywords that you think need to happen in the vanilla industry to make it better. And so what we saw here was I think there was 2 keywords that stood out. So it was transparency and sustainability. Those were words I could pretty much see in every response. It was that third one which was a little bit different here and there, but I think it goes back to talking about buyers as well as sellers. What they really want is they kind of want predictability. They want to be able to know that, you know, I can purchase now and prices are going to be in this area, not what we've got at the moment where, oh, we've dropped the minimum price by $100, people are still expecting to fall further, you've got minimum buying, and that is just not giving the market any confidence. Of course, people are also thinking about, you know, if you're local in Madagascar, you think about your future. You want prices to remain at a level where you can make you know, a living. So we're talking about this living income differential, minimum prices here. Again, I think there's also studies out there from Fairtrade in that $100 to $150 per kilogram range, and again, that's kind of where we're ticking towards. Let me talk you through some of the other points that I kind of picked up throughout the survey. We saw, you know, some were free market. People would say, you know what, we don't need this government intervention. Let supply and demand regulate itself. We touched upon that in the last video a little bit, really, didn't we? And one of the things there that, you know, some people are saying is free markets is good, but free markets right now would probably mean we would see a price of about $40 to $70 per kilogram, so much lower than where we are now. What would that result in? Well, it would, you know, irregular market forces would come in. The economists here will know what I'm about to talk about. You know, there will be less supply going forward as more and more people go out of business. That will then mean we're going to see higher prices going forward. We might see return back to these like $500, $600, $700 per kilogram prices as we move on. Now, I think a lot of buyers are like, well, we don't want that either. So I think that's why the free market aspect, which as I said, I see it frequently in here, is one of the things that is then countered by this living income differential. We are in a developing market, we're in Madagascar, we're in Indonesia, we're in Papua New Guinea. It's all countries that can really need that support for the local farmers as well. And then I think some of the other points, we had less manipulation, we had predictability and consistency, and I think they all draw back to this point of like, well, it somewhat draws back to the free market, that you can kind of predict a little bit more what's going on, but it also really highlights the fact that people want to know and trust, you know, their counterparts, the government, and how they can interact with them. And I think that's touched on a lot of the points that I've been picking up over the last couple of weeks and days as I was speaking to you on the phone as well. So I think at that point I leave it here. I'll probably have a little bit of a longer update than typically, but I think there's a lot of interesting things happening at the moment in the market, so I wanted to make sure they come across to you. As always, there's much more I'm happy to talk to you about. Drop me a line. Obviously, you know our email by now. It's pricing@mintecglobal.com. Obviously, my phone number is also below. Please do reach out, and I'm looking forward to talking to you more about vanilla. Until next time, have a great day.